Hey everybody, Mike Naso here with the latest on the tropics. Of course, everybody is most concerned about the tropical wave in the central and eastern Atlantic. We'll get to that in a moment. First of all, there is a tropical wave in here in the western Caribbean that is associated with an upper level low up here north of western Cuba and another upper low forming down here. And this is all creating a pretty good outflow environment for the wave down here, but a 40 to 50 knot shear zone up here to the east of the Lesser Antilles. However, all this is expected to move westward. We might see some development, but right now I don't think it's likely. Now, what may be likely is development with this system, which is Invest 90L, and it may become a depression today or tomorrow. And you can see it's looking pretty good on the visible imagery. It looks like the center would be right in here. QuickScat was pretty impressive. Another wave moving off behind it, and one in front of it, which might help moisten the environment for it. Taking a look at the blood water vapor, as I like to call it, you could see in there that the system definitely is trying to get its act together. It's starting to fan out a little bit, and the more you look at satellite loops of it, the more it's looking like a tropical depression. So this may very well be our next system. Now, it's expected to continue to move on off towards the west, but with this dominant ridge of high pressure, what we may actually see is a little bit of a west-southwest track over the next day or so. So don't be surprised if this system is down here near 10 north and loses some latitude, even if it does start to develop. We have seen systems in the past do that. Remember, Isabel in '03 started near this area and then kind of drifted southwest and then had a big northwest movement before turning back west. So we could see something like that. But most likely, I think, is a little west-southwest and then on off towards the west-northwest. Now here's the spaghetti model plot, as I like to call them, and any of the models or the climatology models are anywhere from way up here all the way to far enough south to go to the southern Windward Islands. And if you had to create a cone, it'd probably be this, maybe a little bit more narrow than that, and probably a track that would be somewhere up in this general direction towards the U.S. Virgin Islands or the Leeward Islands up there, maybe a little bit to the north, maybe a little bit to the south, but generally in here. Now, the question is, of course, where exactly does it go after that? And that's all speculative. You could see the Euro from earlier today has it next Wednesday, and this is over a week from now, so again, grain of salt here. Has a system moving towards the west, straight towards Florida and the Bahamas. Now, if that panned out and we did have a strong hurricane, we'd be in for some trouble because when these hurricanes get ridges above them, they tend to like to strengthen, especially over the Bahamas. You can see the GFS, however, completely brings it so far south through the Caribbean, over Jamaica, and then over the Yucatan in towards Mexico. So there is a great deal of difference between having it hitting Jamaica and the Yucatan and Mexico and having it skirt the islands, go through the Bahamas and Florida towards the Gulf here. So there is a great deal of difference as you go out, and that's why it's still all speculative at this point. You can see the hurricane heat potential. This out here now, we expect slow to steady strengthening as it forms and moves west, west, northwest, and it could be a hurricane by the time it gets to 50. But what we might see, say if it approaches the Lesser Antilles, one potential situation, and keep in mind there are a lot of them, would be that this system strengthens quickly as it moves into this higher heat potential and actually becomes a major hurricane between the time it's approaching the islands and by the time it gets there. Also, if it is heading towards the Bahamas or in the Western Caribbean, the heat potential is extremely high, and we'd be dealing with a very serious major hurricane at that point. So I think there is potential that this system does move up over the next several days in this area. From there, does it continue with the strong ridging towards Florida and the Gulf? Does enough ridging break down but hold in place to take it more towards the Carolinas like Isabel? Or does it turn, or does it really remain such a strong ridge that it goes into the Caribbean? It's all speculative, but I think up to these points right here, we can make an idea that the hurricane, if it is a hurricane, would be in this area here over the next 5-6 days. Maybe sooner if it moves quicker. You can see it's already starting to come onto the Central Atlantic satellite. So let's say here we're Sunday afternoon, let's say Monday afternoon, Tuesday, Wednesday. By Thursday, Friday, Saturday, by the weekend, by the upcoming weekend, we could have a system in here that could be a pretty intense hurricane potentially. Again, this wind vector here from the upper level low near Florida is creating about 50 knots of wind shear. And if our system was here right now and was a hurricane and that wind shear hit, it'd be toast. But unfortunately, it looks like that will be subsiding as the upper level low near Florida moves to the west. So our system, whatever it is here, should have a pretty good environment with high heat potential and potentially a building ridge to the north of it, which would only create more favorable conditions. So we'll wait and see just what happens with it. Eastern Pacific, interesting thunderstorms off Mexico. Keep an eye on that. And you see this doodad off the screen here. This is in the Central Pacific. This is Hurricane Flossie. Flossie is an extremely dangerous Category 4 hurricane. Winds are 140 miles an hour, gusts well over Cat 5 to 165. Pressure only down to 946, and hasn't dropped any lower than that, moving west at 11. It weakened last night from about 140 miles an hour to 135, but it strengthened this morning back up to 140. Although if you look at the latest satellite imagery, it does look like it will be weakening somewhat as the convection continues to warm as it moves over cooler waters. However, looking at the projected track, this could be a Category 3 hurricane still tomorrow, and then a Category 1 by Wednesday as it passes south of the state of Hawaii. And of course, bear in mind it could go north or south in the projected cone. And it's expected to remain a vigorous tropical storm through the weekend, so we could be dealing with Flossie here on satellite for quite a while. You can see it there is still a formidable hurricane moving towards Hawaii, although it shouldn't directly hit the island. You can see this tropical storm, this is CPAT in the Western Pacific. Slow movement at first, expected to become a typhoon, potentially a powerful typhoon about 100 miles an hour, head towards Taiwan. And you can see it on satellite, looking rather ragged, but it could come together over the next several days. So I'm Mike Naso from IPR. Stay tuned to podweather.com. We will have the latest on these video updates as well as on the station, IPR365.com, about what may happen with our potential future tropical cyclone.